Hi, and welcome to another pick a card reading with MomentsAre. So I'm really excited about this topic. The question is, where do you get your psychic energy from? Okay. Another way of wording this is, where is your spiritual sanctuary? Okay. So let me explain a little bit what I mean by this. You know, for me personally, where I go to feel rejuvenated is in the forest. I love forest energy. And it just kind of helps calm me down and ground myself, okay? But that's not where I go to get spiritual energy. When I am at a beach, when I'm near the ocean, it's almost like my mind wakes up, and it's like I become so much more perceptive. I feel lighter. It's more of a spiritual rejuvenation rather than a physical rejuvenation, okay? So I do want to mention that, you know, you might really like lakes, for example, and if something else entirely comes up, like the desert or something like that, that's okay. We're talking about spiritual energy. And with each reading, not only am I going to give you guys information about where you can help boost your psychic energy and really get in touch with your own intuition, but I'm also going to give you, multiple places and some advice about what kinds of messages those places are associated for you guys, okay? So that said, I'm going to go ahead and point out the piles and name them, okay? So the yellow stone is pile number 1. Pile number 2 is orange. Pile number 3 is green. Pile number 4 is this clear stone. Pile number 5 is this, it's really dark blue. Here, I'll just hold it up. It's a lapis lazuli. So we've got the blue stone, and pile number 6 is red. Okay, so as you guys are thinking about which pile is calling to you, I just want to go ahead and say anything you need to know about me is in that description. And I also want to thank you guys so much for being so supportive and loving on this channel. I really, I just can't tell you how much I really adore you guys, and I'm just really excited to put out more content. All right, so that's enough there. If you are having some problems picking, go ahead and pause the video. Otherwise, we are going to start with the first pile. Okay, so hope you guys are doing well. I'm really excited to see what kinds of messages come up from this. Okay, hi, pile number 1, those of you who picked the Yellowstone. So we've got, okay, and again, this is where you get your spiritual energy from. We've got the cave, okay? And your secondary place, because I do have a secondary place, is crystals. So it seems like you're very connected to rocks, okay? When it comes to the areas where you get your spiritual and your psychic energy from, okay? And here are the things that are like when these come up, you know, this is where you can go to help resolve these issues, okay? So we've got fear, and we've got birth and rebirth. And I really like that, because oftentimes going into a cave in a dream, for example, it's like returning to the womb. So it's like when you come out of the cave, it's like becoming born again. It's like so the birth and rebirth, it kind of has that theme. Birth and rebirth also has to do with just the cycles that we go through in life. You know, we have ups and downs, you know, everybody has them. And sometimes, you know, we can really feel like we're being kind of like rubber banded by the universe, you know. And so when you're feeling just kind of like, oh gosh, it's, you know, or you're repeating something over and over again, it's getting tedious and that kind of stuff, that's the kind of energy that the cave and the crystals can really help heal for you. And again, fear, everybody has fear, okay? But it seems like these areas are better to help heal fear, you know, than other maybe other issues. Okay, now when I say that, I just mean these are the things that can sometimes get in the way of your ability to fully trust your own intuition and fully get in touch with your own spirituality. So it's like, well, I mean, maybe you don't have caves in your area, or maybe it's like, I don't have this beautiful crystal wonderland that I can go to, right? Well, here's what you can do about that. What you can do is you can find, you can go to a, a new age store, something like that. You can go on Amazon or any other online site, or you can even see if there are any rock quarries or any mining available in your area, and you can go out and find rocks, gemstones, and things like that that really speak to you. You could even go out to your own yard and just pick up a rock, okay? Bring it inside, and just every time you look at that rock, okay, whether it's one that you go to a store and pick out, or one that you mine yourself, or one that you just pick up from from your yard, it's like that will help hone you in to your own intuitive abilities, and will also help rejuvenate your spiritual strength. Now, obviously, actually going to a cave, okay, is going to be what is going to help you feel the most and the most spiritual strength and the most intuitive. But you can bring that to you, okay? You don't necessarily have to go there yourself. You can bring that to you. When you meditate, you might want to imagine yourself going into a cave. As you're drifting off to sleep, you might want to imagine yourself going into a cave. Maybe there's a gemstone that's always kind of spoken to you. Maybe you need a crystal, or a selenite stick. There's all sorts of stuff that you can find that can really help you with that stuff. And if it feels weird, like, well, I've never really connected with rocks or whatever, that's okay too, because what we're talking about is not your physical body. We're not necessarily talking about what is appealing to you. We're talking about what appeals to your spirit, and that's a completely different plane. All right, guys? So this is where you would need to go in order to get your spiritual strength back, okay? Hi, those of you who picked pile number 2, the orange. Here's your place. Your special place is the river, okay? And then your secondary special place, you've got Gaia. This is just Earth, okay? Mother Earth, okay? So we're talking, I mean, yes, it can be forest energy, any place on Earth, obviously. But I feel like when we are talking about Gaia, we're talking about the nurturing soil, okay? So I would say that this refers to gardens, places where there's new growth, and places where growth is being encouraged, right? And the areas that you can really work on in these places are working on trust issues and working on forgiveness issues. It seems like these issues are what the river and what Gaia heals, okay? So, it's like, okay, well, maybe there aren't any rivers near you, or maybe you don't have access to beautiful botanical gardens, or maybe you've just got a black thumb, or maybe a brown thumb like me, okay? Because I'm good with some, and I'm just horrible with others, right? That doesn't mean that you can't still enjoy the richness of feeling that spiritual rejuvenation and getting in touch with your own intuition. What it means is that you've just got to bring that energy to you. So one thing you can do is you can go out and find paintings of rivers, paintings of gardens, okay? You can research about beautiful, really iconic gardens. Like, for example, Monet's garden was a big iconic one, and it's still, you can still visit it. So you can get paintings, yes. You can also bring in anything that has moving water in it. Like sometimes I know that you can purchase the indoor waterfalls. They're, you know, some of them really small. It's like the river. It's talking about flow. Okay, it's talking about getting into that flow state. Some people call it the zone. Some people call it like a trance. But it's basically that place where you're just really productive. You're highly focusing and all of that, and you just trust yourself. You just know everything that's coming through you. It's like flowing through you, and you don't have to question it. And that's where you can really get in touch with that. And then the forgiveness aspect has to do with, you know, when you're in your Gaia energy, and this is something like bringing in soil. You know, you could even bring in a plant, a house plant. It doesn't even have to be one that takes a whole lot of care. It could be a cactus. You know, it doesn't have to be you know, a major thing. But just, you know, getting in that energy will help you feel more open to forgiveness, more open to forgiveness of yourself too, okay? Because remember, forgiveness is not just for others. We oftentimes have the most difficult time forgiving ourselves, not other people. So do keep that in mind as well. But your spiritual energy is totally rejuvenated when you are around gardens and when you're near a river, or you're on a river, or you're spending time next to a river. So those would be the areas to go to. Of course, the amount of rejuvenation is going to be in direct proportion to, you know, how close to this you feel like you are. Okay, obviously you can do meditation where you imagine yourself in a garden, maybe, or in, you know, at a river. And you know, like I said, there are ways that you can bring this kind of energy into your living space, so that you don't necessarily have to go out to experience it. You know, every time you look at maybe the painting, or you know, the little vial of dirt that you might collect, or whatever it is, you can you know, get just a little bit of a spiritual boost there, and you'll find that your intuition really grows and comes out. And again, you know, if you don't feel particularly connected to rivers, or particularly connected to gardens, don't worry about that, because we're not talking about the physical body. We're not talking about what you like. We're talking about what your spirit likes. And that can sometimes be a little bit confusing, but the spirit needs something that, you know, often we're not aware of what our spirits are really attuned to. And so by getting in touch with where we get our spiritual energy, we can then become a lot more in tune to our spirit, the esoteric, psychic energies, and all of that great stuff. Okay, guys? It's a really beautiful reading, guys. All right, hi. Those of you who picked the third pile, the green stone, here is your reading. Okay, so you get your spiritual energy from the desert. How interesting is that? And your secondary area that you get your spiritual energy from is the full moon. Now, I understand that this isn't a place, okay? But when there is a full moon, your spiritual energy is rejuvenated, okay? And here is what you're working on. This is what this area really brings to you. It really brings to you the appreciation of the unknown and the desire to go after the unknown. We've got the mystery here. What that's talking about is the thrill of discovery. Okay, it gets you kind of amped up to really explore the esoteric, really explore your own intuition. Okay. And then we've got perception. Your perception will be heightened so much. So, obviously the best thing to do would be to go to a desert, or to, you know, go outside when there's a full moon, right? But maybe, you know, it's not going to be a full moon, you know, maybe if you're watching it at a certain time, it's not going to be a full moon for another 27 days, right? So, you know, here's how you can bring that stuff in, okay? You can either go out and find paintings of this, you know, of a desert, or the full moon, right? You can, you know, with the moon, there's a lot of jewelry. Like, I'm actually wearing a lot of moonstones. This is a moonstone here, okay, and this is a moonstone here, okay. So I personally really love moonstones, but you know, that would be another way that you could get in touch with that kind of energy. having sand, like with the desert, you might want to have a couple of hourglasses around, and just kind of, there's also the element of heat, okay, and dryness, okay, so there's also that. This also, if you don't have any deserts around, where you are, that doesn't mean that you can't still get the benefits from that, because what your spirit needs is to just have some kind of conduit, some kind of connection, so that it can kind of get amplified a little bit, right? So again, bringing some sand into it, you could even bring in a Zen garden, where you just, you can play with that a little bit. Just anything that has sand, in it, sandbox, and that kind of thing. A picture of the pyramids, that kind of stuff. You can get really creative. And with the moon, going outside when it's a full moon, just being aware of the cycles of nature and that kind of thing can really help with that. But these are the times, these are the areas that you can go to really get that spiritual growth going. Okay, and it's going to really heighten your perception, and it's going to really open your mind up to the unknown. And I feel like it almost serves as a bridge for that. One thing I want to say about the desert specifically is that oftentimes it's associated with going on vision quests, okay? So another thing that you might want to do is a guided meditation, or a meditation that you just do yourself, where you imagine yourself in the desert walking, and you're looking for a vision, okay? You're looking to have a vision. And eventually, in a meditation like this, you would stumble upon some sort of vision that would then help with your spiritual strength. Also, take notes of any dreams you have that are set in the desert, or that a full moon is represented, because those are messages, okay? And don't worry at all if you physically do not feel particularly connected to the desert or particularly connected to the moon, right? Because we're not talking about the physical body. We're talking about the spiritual body, and the spiritual body is often unknown to us, right? And it resonates on a different level than our physical body does, and the spirit in you needs that more desert energy. The spirit in you needs that full moon energy, okay? So just be aware of that, and know that when that is going on, your intuition is really flourishing, and you can really get a lot of spiritual rejuvenation by, even just spending 15 minutes outside during a full moon, okay? And, it's nice that you have a really easy one here with the moon. I understand the desert it depends on where you live, really. But, for example, I'm not near any desert type landscapes myself, so it would be difficult for me. Still, this is your spiritual sanctuary, if you will, okay? So that is really interesting. I really like this one. Okay. Hi, those of you who picked the fourth pile, the clear stone. Okay, this is nice. We've got the bridge, okay? And we've got the island, okay? And we've got risk and joy. Okay, this is a really interesting one. I really like this one, okay? Because it's kind of it's almost counterintuitive, because a bridge, it's how could that be a place where I get spiritual strength? That's gonna have to explain that to me. Basically, when you're in between two worlds, okay, that's where you get your spiritual strength. So you can think of that as in being, for example, that time in between wakefulness and going to sleep, okay, as you're drifting off. You can think of it as being in a trance state. You can also think of it as being, a literal bridge, because some people, that is what they need. They need to just stand on a bridge and feel that kind of drop below them, like they're suspended, and it's almost like if they're on one side or on the other side, it's too imbalanced. But when you're on the bridge, you can kind of take stake of which side you want to go to, so that, in the bridge, and it's also connecting too, okay? And I really like that because it connects two things that might be kind of opposing, right? So you really thrive when you're in between two things, okay? And so I'm just trying, for example, it would be right that place where the ocean meets the shore, okay? So it wouldn't necessarily be beach energy, it wouldn't necessarily be ocean energy, but it would be the in between, or it would be right, that time. It's like you're not in the meadow in the plains and you're not in the forest, but maybe you're in the woods, okay? So I'm talking about areas where it's like there's two very distinct places and you're in the middle, right? Another really good example would be maybe you prefer hills rather than mountains, okay? Because they're in the middle, right? And what better place than having an island, which is usually in the middle of a body of water, right? I think that all of them are. But and here's what you can do with this, okay? And I kind of misspoke a little bit. It might not be where you feel like you get your energy from, because we're not talking about the physical body. We're talking about the spiritual body, okay? We're talking about your spirit. We're talking about where you go to rejuvenate your spirit. There is something that happens to your spirit when you're in that in-between that really livens it, okay? Really makes it feel expanded and really piques your intuitive energy, okay? And those places are bridges and islands. So what can you do, okay? Maybe there aren't a lot of bridges around and maybe you don't have access to an island, right? Well, what you can do is you can get paintings, or pictures of these things and hang them around your house so that you can bring that to you. That way, every time you pass by and you look at it, you'll be able to give your spirit that kind of extra strength, okay? Another thing that you can do is you can go to these places in a meditation, okay? Just imagine yourself there, okay? You can also imagine this as you're drifting off to sleep, right? Those in-between places are really good times to meditate, and you just happen, your spirit happens to really resonate with those in-between places, okay? So I think that that's really great. If you have the ability to go out to an island, whether it's a small one, or it's like, well, I'm going to visit Ireland, for example, or Australia or something like that. Either way, it's like that's where your spiritual body wants to be. And don't worry if that doesn't resonate with you in your physical body, because we're talking about the spiritual body, which is on a different plane. And oftentimes, it's not going to really match what you actually like, because the spiritual body wants usually what the physical body, doesn't really want to pay attention to, that's what the spiritual body starts being starved for. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic there. Now, the areas that you'd be working on here, what this place brings to you especially, is risk and joy. Okay, now risk, that's a really interesting one, and I love how the bridge is associated with it, because we have, when we take risks, it's like we don't know what's going to happen, in the same way that when we're on a bridge, we don't know if we're going to go to one side or the other, technically, okay, when we're in the in-between, right? We're not necessarily on one side or the other. We're just in between it. We're existing in the in-between. We're not one place or another. Risk is a lot like that too. Some of us, if you're like me, are very, very overcautious. Some of us just love risk and thrive on it, right? When you're having issues with starting something new, for example, taking a leap of faith, that kind of stuff, doing something that might feel a little scary because it's risky, right? That's when your spirit really needs this energy, okay? And then joy. There's something that will bring a whole lot of joy to you when you're in this bridge energy and the island energy, okay? I'd really recommend, if you can't get to a place like that periodically to help rejuvenate your soul, to at least get some kind of representation of that and bring that to your living space so that you can have that to nurture your spirit. Okay, because just making a small gesture like that is enough to bring that spiritual awareness out, and it will really do wonders for your intuition and your psychic abilities. It's just amazing what happens when we feed our spirit. All right, guys, that's awesome. I personally love islands. That's my physical body talking. All right, those of you who picked the blue stone, pile number 5. Okay, how interesting is this? We've got the village and we have the lake. Okay, we've got disruption and letting go. How interesting. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Okay, so the village. I was wondering if this card was going to come up. And I think it's kind of interesting because some of us, because a lot of the cards are really talking about natural places, right? We're talking about, standard places like the forest, the desert, the ocean, places like that. But you guys have the village. So your spiritual body seeks out being in a somewhat crowded area. This would be city energy, but it would also be town energy. It doesn't necessarily have to be a huge city. But just know the closer you are to community, the more your spirit becomes, quickens and becomes awake. This might be, for some of you guys, a shock because, we're not talking about your physical body. We're talking about your spiritual body, what your spirit wants, or what your spirit is starved for. And often those things are in conflict. Not always, but often they are, because, your spirit's going to be starved for what your body doesn't go towards, right? So going out, being around people, being, appreciating really brilliant architecture, things like that, that is the kind of thing that really brings expansion to your spirit and heightens that intuition. Your secondary place is the lake. A lake is talking, we've got the keyword stillness there, and I think it's really important to think about lakes as being still, because we've got, when you think about other bodies of water, you've got rivers that are really, they flow, and you've got the ocean with the turbulent waves and everything, but lakes are really still. And I really like that because it's almost like reflective, and it really helps people go deep. In a lot of myth and fairy tale and legend and folklore, and this is all over the place, lakes are associated with psychic energy because they provide this sort of reflection. It's almost like you can gaze into a lake the way that one might gaze into a crystal ball, for example. And it's almost like I've just seen that come up a lot in those kinds of stories. So I think it's an interesting cultural thing as well. So this is what your soul seeks out. This is what your spirit seeks out. And when you're in these types of environments, it really is able to expand, flourish, grow, get excited, and it will rejuvenate your spirit to bring that intuition, really heighten your psychic perception, okay? And these are the areas that are especially, like when these areas come up, it's especially important to think about these areas, okay? And try to get into one of these spaces, right? And that's when you're experiencing disruption. Something's interrupting what you want to do. Or something, it just comes out of nowhere and it's like, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, that kind of thing. So when you're talking about disruption, and when you're having issues with letting go of something, like you've just gotta walk away from it maybe, and give it some time before you come back to it. Or maybe there's something that you just need to let go of. Maybe that transition period can be sometimes difficult for your spirit to accept, during these times are the really important times to bring this energy in. Now, I do want to say you don't necessarily have to physically go to these places in order for your spirit to be nurtured by them. Other things that you can do is you can bring pictures of little villages, like paintings, and bring that into your home, and hang that around where you can see it. That way, your spirit will get a little boost out of that. I mean, it's really amazing how a small act can really boost the spirit like that. It's almost like, oh wow, I'm being acknowledged. It's great. Or you could, and hopefully in addition to, you can bring lake energy to that as well. And do understand that you can get real creative about it. You don't necessarily have to bring in a picture of a lake. You could bring in a picture of, for example, a fish, or whatever it is, or a weeping willow that they love to grow by bodies of water. So it doesn't necessarily have to be literally a lake, but your spirit really likes it when it's in these places, okay? It's going to get more of a boost from actually physically being there, but that doesn't mean that you can't nurture it if you don't have access to these places, okay? Or if you just don't feel that comfortable in big cities, or out in public so much. I know that I'm one of those people. So but yeah, this is really a beautiful thing here, because we have something that really goes against what I would say would be intuitive. A lot of people think, oh, well, where's a place where I can find a spiritual sanctuary? And going to a village does not seem like that place, right? But it's almost like your spirit really needs that energy from a lot of people. Or needs that energy from appreciating aesthetically beautiful architecture, okay? So it might just be a certain building, might be something that, you can make the decisions, okay? Your spirit's going to be appreciative of anything you do, any gesture you make. That's just the way that the spirit is. It's very loving. It's very appreciative of any effort you take, but I bringing these things into your life, knowing that it helps your spirit rejuvenate, will really expand your ability to connect with more psychic awareness and that kind of thing. It's really going to help you guys. All right, okay, that's a really good one. Hi. Pile number 6, those of you who picked the redstone. So this is a great one. We've got the castle, okay? And we've got that followed by the waterfall. And we've got burden and restriction. So let me just kind of put these to the side and talk about the places first, okay? The castle represents 2 different things. And of course, you could physically go and visit a castle. There's a lot in Europe. For those of you who don't have access to Europe, don't worry. Well, I'll speak on that later. But you can actually physically go and visit a castle. Or you can think of it more like the place that your spirit gets rejuvenated is when you explore history, okay? And when you explore fantasy. Okay, so it's not even a physical place so much as it is a state of mind. And the spirit doesn't work the way that the physical body does. So, while yes, being inside of a castle or being near a castle or seeing one, might be especially thrilling for your spirit, it's just being aware of those kinds of ideas can help your spirit get really start to expand. And you don't necessarily have to physically go there. You don't even have to, if maybe you're not interested in history and you're like, ugh, I don't want to read about that, or maybe maybe for you it might not be something that you like to fantasize, just like that. That's okay. You can bring something like that into your home. so that your spirit gets a little dose of that every day. For example, maybe you could get a calendar that has castles in it, or maybe you could put up a picture of a castle in your home. So and every time you walk by it, your spirit will just get a little jolt of energy there, and after a while it'll start really working for you, and things will start coming together. You'll feel like you're really getting things, and you're able to really get in touch with that intuition and trust it, your secondary place, okay, so this is the primary, this is the big one, the castle, but your secondary place would be waterfalls, okay? And there's something about the flowing water, the way it flows downward, that really exhilarates your spirit. And with this one, you can go with a picture, bringing that into your home. I know that there are a lot of both indoor and outdoor waterfalls that you could purchase, at all different price points. Or you could physically visit a waterfall. And this is another place where your spirit just kind of longs to be. And when you're in this kind of energy, when you're in this place, your spirit, again, it really expands. It becomes energized, and it's much easier to connect with it. Now, these are the times where you especially benefit from this. Okay, so this is kind of the bridge into the physical body, right? When you're feeling really burdened and when you're feeling restricted, okay, that's the time where your spirit is going to benefit the most from being reminded of castles, okay, and waterfalls, okay? And really, don't worry if that doesn't resonate with you physically. Because maybe, maybe you don't particularly, you haven't ever really connected with castles, or maybe you've never really felt all that connected to waterfalls. Your spiritual body, though, is what we're talking about. And that's what needs feeding, and again, you can just experiment with it. Just bring one thing in. You might want to just Google a picture and like an image search and look at the images and see how you feel. After 1 or 2 days, see, are you feeling more psychically aware? And if it starts working, which it should, go ahead and bring more of that energy so that your spirit can also be fed that way. All right, guys? Yeah. One thing about restriction that I've just got to point out is that sometimes when we're restricted, we can become even more creative than when we have just all the tools connected to each other, to ourselves. And, I haven't said this about any of the other piles. I didn't go into detail about, these particular cards because it's really going to be individual. But I just have to say about restriction is that, for me, it's like at first I just kind of I really don't like it, and I just want to rage against it and everything. But then I realize, oh my gosh, at least I have a limit to what I can do, and I've got this like neat little box that, this is what I can do, this is what I have to work with, and it really helps me focus in on what I can work on. So I just wanted to mention that about restriction. But yeah, this is really great, and it's so nice to have areas where there's so much art that you can bring in and just and do that. So yeah, this is what your spiritual body needs to really help you hone into your psychic abilities. Alright guys, thank you guys so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope you liked it. I know that it was a little unconventional, but I was really excited about doing this one. And, yes, I'm going to continue doing the love readings, so you don't have to worry about that. But I did want to put in a couple of more general readings so that my audience could get some, nice nuggets of spiritual help that has to do with other areas of their lives, maybe something that's a little bit more universally applicable. Okay, guys, and I really, I really encourage you to explore this. Like I said to one pile, you might want to just do a Google image search for whatever came up for you and just see what happens after you look at a few pictures. Just see, do you feel a little bit more aware? Do you feel a little bit rejuvenated? Because even though I stress the idea that the spirit body and the physical body are different, they are connected, obviously. And, so you should be able to kind of connect with the kind of energy that was revealed to you, and be able to work with that, okay? And you should be able to start feeling that intuitive energy increasing almost immediately, if not after a couple of days, okay? Again, I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys. I also can't say how excited I am about putting out regular content again. So really, guys, I'm just really excited about this channel and where it's going and all the great stuff that we have planned for you. And when I say we, I'm talking about the co-owner, Shannon, my Australian friend, who's just a joy to work with and is going to be featured a lot more on this channel. So with that, thank you guys again for watching, and I'll see you at the next pick a card reading.